Let's get it. 580 Sports Talk on a Wednesday afternoon in the capital city. Friends, ball knowers, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here. We've got 3 hours of sports talk coming your way here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, FM 1049, 580 WIBW, 580WIBW.com, and on our live YouTube stream, which you can find on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, and on Facebook at WIBW News. I am Dan Lucero. Brendan Dworzinski's in the box. Spencer Dupuis will be along later on. It'll be a revolving door cast of characters for the most part today. Brendan Dworzinski's got Washburn basketball. This can't be right, Brendan. It says here Washburn's playing a home game at Lee Arena. Is that allowed?
I know. It's hard to believe. Yeah, the last home game for the Washburn men or women was also the last game I did before I went on paternity leave, November 30th. They didn't have a single home game in December.
Wild. It has been a long time since the Ichabod's have graced the friendly confines of Lee Arena. But they are there tonight for MIAA action against Missouri Western. 5:30 tip-off for the women's game. The men follow. Brendan will have the call over on our sister station, your exclusive home of the Ichabod's, Country 106.9. So he'll be ducking out a little early today for that. So he will be with us for the start of the show. Spencer Dupuis will be in and out. And I'll be with you all 3 hours. That may be cold comfort. You may hate hearing that, but I'm rocking with you the next 3 hours here on 580 Sports Talk.
Yeah,
Thank you. We got a sound effect of some applause on there. You could have fired that.
Let me go searching.
Shit, don't worry about it. We've got 3 hours of sports talk coming your way today. Lots to get to on the program, including a really dispiriting loss for Kansas State basketball. Not just the fact that they lost to the only team in the Big 12 that was lower in the Ken Palm than they were going into last night, but it was the way that they lost and the way that today. Plenty of K-State hoops. Then we'll get Tim Fitzgerald's thoughts as well. Tim Fitzgerald, GoPowerCat.com, will join us at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour for the Wildcat Wrap-Up. Fitz joins us every Wednesday to talk K-State, and surely Fitz has plenty of thoughts about what he's seen from K-State men's basketball so far, and we'll get him to weigh in as well. KU basketball plays tonight. We'll get to that a little bit later on in the program, talking about their matchup at Allen Fieldhouse against Arizona State. Surely KU won't start this Big 12 season 0-2 in Allen Fieldhouse, will they? Surely not. It's an 8 o'clock tip on ESPN2 tonight.
I have to do some research into when the last time that happened would have been.
Yeah, that would be, it's been a long time, right? Been a really long time. Apologies, we had a momentary lapse there audio-wise, but I think we're back on the video stream today. Again, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. So apologies to those of you watching the video who might have lost the audio there for a second. Anyway, we're back. We've got college hoops to get to today. We're going to talk about the AFC West. And you remember the fanfare 2 years ago about how the AFC West was going to be the best division of football, and obviously that never materialized, at least not in the form that people expected. That was the year everybody else in the division went all in. The Chargers spent a bunch of money in free agency, and the Broncos went and got Russell Wilson, and the Raiders hired Josh McDaniels and traded for Devontae Adams, and it was going to be it was going to be the best division of football. And the Chiefs continued to romp and stomp their way through it. This year has ended up being a little bit more like what people mean when they talk about a division being the best in football, because there are 3 teams in the AFC West, part of the 7-team AFC playoff field. But what I want to discuss is this the ceiling for the Chargers and the Broncos? At least, is it the ceiling for now during this period of Chiefs dominance that doesn't appear like it's going to end anytime real soon? Is this as good as the Chargers and the Broncos can expect to be? And do the Raiders have any hope whatsoever? I can field that one for us. I can knock that one out right away. No. The answer to that question is no. But for the Chargers and the Broncos, do they still have some ceiling left? Or do we see them kind of hit their ceiling in what they were able to accomplish this season as far as the regular season goes? So we'll get into that some later on in the show today. We'll also get to some baseball, something I didn't get a chance to get into yesterday, but I wanted to throw out a realistic free agent target for the Royals as they So, but I have a realistic target that I like, and then a target that ESPN.com threw out today that I really don't. And we'll talk about why I think that the Royals need a lineup. The 5 o'clock hour, 2 news stories on what is wrong with you. Middle of the 4 o'clock hour, we'll play around a one gotta go here in a little bit as well. Plus your interaction with the program today. Hit us up if you're watching on YouTube. Again, the YouTube stream, 580 Sports Talk. There is a live chat feature that you do so, whether you're watching in the browser, youtube.com, or on your mobile device on the YouTube app.
We are, real quick, if you're watching on YouTube, we're dealing with some technical difficulties. We have prison Wi-Fi at the radio station, so we're doing our best to stay on the air. Yeah, we hear you guys that the audio is breaking up there. We'll try to get it figured out. One of these days, I'll have it explained to me why a media company can't have fully functional internet all the time. But until that day, we will do the best we can with what we've got.
Blame it on the cold, right?
Yeah. That's the least likely option to get me in trouble. So, yes, I will blame the cold.
All right. Hey, anything you say gets me in trouble, too.
Yeah, that's true.
So, let's just...
yeah, your name's on the screen, too.
Yeah, let's just agree to blame it on the cold. How about that? But anyway, thanks for bearing with us. I usually
prefer to blame it on the rain, personally.
Yeah. Whatever you do, don't put that blame on you.
There you go.
That song is the heater, man. I just quiet as it's kept. I know they took Milli Vanilli's Grammys away. Whoever was singing that song put their foot in it. The song's a jam. Anyway, so thanks for bearing with us if you're watching on YouTube. If you're not, if you're just listening to the show on 580 WIBW FM 104.9 or 580WIBW.com, you're free to text the program today. The text line wide open. 785-272-9429. 785-272-9429. Really want to hear from some K-State fans today. Some K-State basketball fans. After the game last night, K-State loses to Oklahoma State, 79-66. Play-by-play man Lowell Galindo, about late in the first half, when the game was still competitive on the scoreboard, mentioned that of K-State's next 13 games, including last night's, this was the only game that the metrics favored K-State to win. This was the one where K-State graded out better in the advanced metrics, Ken Palm, all those numbers, than their opponent did. And those numbers are going to hold. And, I mean, you saw last night that they don't always. So do I think K-State's going to lose their next 12, Big 12 games all in a row, not put up a fight? No, I don't. But You know it's going to get worse before it gets better because the schedule is going to get tougher. And we said it on yesterday's show that this was a game you absolutely had to win. It would behoove K-State to win this game. And not only do they not win last night at America's favorite wrestling gym, Gallagher-Iba Arena, they played some really gross basketball. I think the first 20 minutes was about as bad as I've seen a Jerome Tang K-State team play.
I would agree with you.
They tried to play this, like, Oklahoma State doesn't play very good basketball either. Like, from an aesthetic standpoint, that first half of basketball was unpleasant regardless. I even think if you were a nonpartisan, you would not have enjoyed that half of basketball. If you were an Oklahoma State fan, you probably didn't enjoy it until the 15-0 run that closed the half. But K-State tried to get into this run and gun, full court, YMCA kind of basketball game, and were so incredibly sloppy in the process. Missed layups, bad turnovers, brainless turnovers. Doug McDaniel was horrendous. Coleman Hawkins was too passive. Once again, a supporting actor in a lead role. And K-State got dominated inside by a big man. And look, let's give Usman some credit last night from Oklahoma State, because he was really good. 27 points on 13 shots is pretty outstanding. So credit where it's due for the big fella for the Oklahoma State Cowboys, because he was very good last night. Abu Usman had 27 points. But K-State couldn't guard him, and it was obvious that they couldn't guard him, and it took until the start of the second half for Jerome Tang to try a true center on defense. Just to even think to get the warm-up off of Hugo and Yenso, that it took a half. Like, they were on that run, Oklahoma State. They're on that run, and Kansas State can't stop the big guy. They can't keep Oklahoma State out of the paint. They can't defend the paint. And the solution off the bench was Moby Ike Garuka? What? When I saw...
Gesundheit.
Thank you. When I saw Moby come into the game, that was when I realized Kansas State was going to win.
We're going to get into this specific critique of mine more in the 4 o'clock hour. I have some very, very, very strong concerns about the tactical abilities of the K-State staff. And I think last night was a really strong example of that. Like, just what is the plan? I feel like this team lacks strong game planning sometimes. And I don't know if that is a coaching thing always, or if that is sometimes the players. I thought the roster, and I don't generally like to talk about college athletes like this, they looked listless. They looked unfocused. And I don't think there was any better example of that. And this does fall on coaching too. The final play of the first half, 2.2 seconds left. Oklahoma State hits a pair of free throws to go up by 17 points. Disgusting in and of itself. Coleman Hawkins then tries to force the inbound pass about 40% of the way up the court. Doesn't see the Oklahoma State player lurking, who then steals the ball, gets a look for a mid-range jumper, and beats the buzzer with it to make it a 19-point game going into the half. Bad turnover, distracted, listless play.
Lazy, sloppy.
Lazy, yes.
Uncaring. Like that's a play you make when you don't care.
Yeah.
Like,
and there's more than one way to skin a cat here. I'm not saying that the only way to handle that situation is to go and rip your guys a new one. It's not. But that being said, like, how do you think Bill Self would have handled that? I think Bill Self would have handled Coleman Hawkins making that play right there. I don't know that Coleman Hawkins starts the second half. He never would have heard the fury that a coach like it. It's not just Bill Self, but a coach like that would have unleashed on him. Tang's not that guy, and he doesn't need to be that guy to find success.
Not every coach is that coach, but
you got to do something different, because this team is playing such sloppy, unfocused, and I hate they didn't care about that game attitude, because I think that's lazy. But it kind of felt like they didn't really care about that game, and you cannot have that.
As soon as Oklahoma State started going on that run and the lead got to double digits, you could see the head start to hang. You could see the energy change. You could see the body language get worse. This is not a team with a lot of confidence, not a lot of confidence in itself, not a lot of confidence in each other. The players, frankly, just aren't good enough. Like, at the end of the day, there were some people and like smart people in the college basketball circle. Yeah. Well, you're smart to give yourself credit for it. You don't sell yourself short. But like Matt Norlander, I think, knows his stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a smart college basketball guy. He had K-State as a preseason top 25 team. He was not alone in that assessment that was the ceiling for this group. And when you go down the list of names and you can say to yourself, yeah, I like this player. Yeah, I like what this guy can do. Yeah, theoretically, I like what this player adds to the table. Well, now in theory, we've got 14 games of evidence that this doesn't work, that Coleman Hawkins doesn't seem to accept that his responsibility is to be the best player on the court every night for Kansas State. He never had to be that at Illinois last year. Terrence Shannon was that guy every night for a really good Illinois team. Coleman Hawkins never had to be the guy. He was brought to K-State and given a nice fat check to be the guy. And either he doesn't have it in him or he's not willing to be that kind of player. And look, there is nothing wrong with a player who does a little bit of everything, makes his teammates better, facilitates, distributes, defends. Coleman Hawkins is an objectively good basketball player.
Yes.
But Coleman Hawkins does not seem to accept that his responsibility on this team is not to be a good basketball player. He is meant to be the man, the reason you win games, the alpha dog. And it's either not in him to do it or he'd just rather not do it. It's not his nature. But one way or another, that's the biggest miss for this team. Like, we could talk about the other stuff. We could talk about the fact that K-State is finding out what Michigan found out last year, that Doug McDaniel is, shall we say, mercurial. Or if you don't want to be as nice, a bit of a knucklehead. Brendan Housen is a nice shooter who is in a shooting slump, which doesn't help.
Not great.
But doesn't really give you anything else, particularly not on the defensive end.
Mm-hmm.
The Joneses are just guys. Like, CJ and Max Jones are just guys.
Yep.
And look, if you've got 3 or 4 really good players and then the rest of your guys are just guys, that's fine. But your guys who are meant to be stars, the 2 guys you were leaning on the most were Coleman Hawkins and Doug McDaniel. And when they have both played well, Kansas State has looked good. But that has happened like twice.
And the swing and the miss comes with Hawkins because, we went into this season and I said on these airwaves, because I remember seeing KU fans laughing, you gave that much money to Coleman Hawkins, only scores 12 points a game. And I remember saying, look, Coleman Hawkins is a really good player and he affects the games in other ways than just his points per game average. He can pass well. He can rebound well. He's a big body, not a great defender, but a big body at least. Like, there's other ways he's going to impact the game because that's what he did at Illinois. My assumption was in this role, K-State could be a tournament team because he could be a bigger deal than that.
Yes.
He could be more than your super role player. He hasn't been. Comes down to that. And you're exactly right. Either he does not care, and I don't like to assume that, or he just is a super role player. And that's fine. That's a really nice piece to have. And when you've got Terrence Shannon, who we kind of kept it quiet fairly because the allegations against him from the incident in Lawrence last year were pretty gross. And you didn't want to be like, TJ Shannon, man, what a player. Yeah, there's that other stuff. Like, all of college basketball kind of was like, yeah, Terrence Shannon too. Now, with how that has all played out and he's in the NBA and playing minutes for the Timberwolves, Terrence Shannon was incredible last season. Mm-hmm. He was awesome and probably covered up a lot of the blemishes. Illinois has had a number of those guys recently. Ayo Dosunmu covered up for a lot of the fact that Kofi Coburn could block shots and dunk and not really do anything else. Same thing probably with Terrence Shannon and Coleman Hawkins. I'm not saying he's bad, but you expected him to be more. And he is still the super role player guy without a playmaker around him. Doug McDaniel is not that kind of guy, and he's not the player you hoped he would be either. Let's just be frank about
the
it.
Consistency isn't there. Like, again, I'm trying not to, I don't want to pile on, right? But the consistency has not been there. And it's been a lot more valley than peak with Doug McDaniel right now.
So I want to bring up one more quick note here. Christopher brings up the name Arthur Kaluma in the YouTube comments.
Yes.
You know who dropped 25 points on the best team in the country last night?
Arthur Kaluma.
Arthur Kaluma. I laughed when he scored his 24th and 25th points. I laughed watching that game. It's like, wow, like, this is such peak Kaluma, right? Like once in a while against a really good team, he's going to go for he's going to have a huge night.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter at all because Texas got their ass beat last night by Auburn. I think Auburn's best team in the country. Like, that's what we're running into with K-State. We'll get to more on this next hour.
Kaluma was a trick-or-treat guy last year for K-State.
See, exactly. Like, you've got, like, wow, Arthur Kaluma, remember him at Creighton? Wow, Coleman Hawkins at Illinois, remember that? Wow, Doug McDaniel at Michigan, remember that? Yeah. Why were those guys all available?
Yeah.
Probably something you need to add. Like, Coleman Hawkins, really good. Illinois fans are going to love that dude forever. And I know he loves Illinois still. Brad Underwood helped him get to K-State. Why didn't Brad Underwood want him back in Illinois? What was going on with Doug McDaniel at Michigan? That the new regime was like, hey, Doug, hit the portal. What was going on with Arthur Kaluma at Creighton that Creighton fans were not really like crushed that he transferred to K-State?
That's the risk you run when you play the transfer portal game, is that a lot of times when it's a high major player moving on, that player is available for a reason. Like, it's one thing to be a Zeke Mayo type, or even, because that's on the high end of the examples here, but a Max Jones type, where you're a really good player at a lower level, and you've got a chance to, maybe see what it's going to be, and at a Power 4 school, at a bigger program. But a lot of times when it's guys moving from one high major to another high major, like, there's a reason that the other high major isn't dropping the big NIL bag. The reason that other high major is, well, yeah, we wish you well and good luck in your future endeavors. There are reasons that those things are the case. And I think that there's a broader conversation to be had. And we're going to do some of the big picture stuff. We'll talk about it in the 4 o'clock hour. But Kansas State caught lightning in a bottle in year one with Jerome Tang and a team full of transfers. And they tried to do it again, and it isn't working. Like, that is the one-line epitaph for what has happened here. They have tried to replicate something that worked, despite it being unlikely to have worked, and it worked great. And the second time around, it's not working.
Real quick before we get to a break, because I want to have a few things dovetail here. I want to make sure we mention Bill's comment on the YouTube stream. I'm 57 years of age, and in all my years rooting for the Cats, this might be the most disappointing team ever with all the talent they got. I hate the NIL. So we'll tie this all back together next hour. I think there's something worth mentioning. And I mentioned Keontae Johnson and Marquise Noel on yesterday's show, and those names are going to keep coming up. They come up here. We probably underrated those two. Not even because of how
All-Americans.
Not even because of how good they were, but think of it this way. What does Doug McDaniel have to prove, like, on the grand stage? Like, where's the dog coming from? What does Coleman Hawkins have to prove on the grand stage? Like, where's that fire coming from? Keontae Johnson died and came back to life on the basketball court. Never thought he was going to play ever again, and his best opportunity was at Kansas State. And every single minute you were going to get, I didn't think I was going to play again, and I'm going to prove that I deserve this. Marquise Noel was, this sounds mean, but it's also true, essentially a laughing stock because he took Steph Curry shots and couldn't make them at a Steph Curry clip. Do you remember the game? It was a conference game, I think. His first year in Manhattan, the last Bruce Weber year, he took at the end of a game a three that was so ill-advised, like it was funny if it wasn't infuriating.
No, I do.
Like,
did that
he was a meme player, but he was like, hey, I'm small, but I've got heart, and I'm going to work with Coach Tang, and I'm going to prove that I'm good enough to play here. And he did.
It's investment in the program.
Yes.
Investment in something that is bigger than just you. And look, you can get an NIL check and be invested in the greater cause.
Sure.
100%. So it's not you take a check and you turn into a mercenary. That's not like, I don't like making NIL the boogeyman here. But at the same time, you have got a group of Kansas State Wildcats right now that do not appear to be invested in the whole. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the guys who are giving the most consistent night in, night out effort are the two guys who played more than one season in Manhattan, Buddy Rich and David Gasson.
Dude, I have nothing negative to say about David Gasson. That dude works his ass off.
David Gasson is emo to the core, man. I know he didn't start at K-State, but that's a guy, man, I hope you bring the house down on senior day or senior night for David Gasson.
Yeah, I have nothing negative to say about the dude. Not a single thing.
We'll talk more K-State basketball. We'll get into it in the 4 o'clock hour. We'll talk about it with Tim Fitzgerald. Go powercat.com on the Wildcat Wrap-Up as well. Right now, we're going to take our first time out. When we come back, quick game of one got to go. Then we're going to talk about the Chiefs in the AFC West. That's coming up. We're just getting started on this Wednesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. One got to go on 580 Sports Talk. I've got the top 4 teams in the Big 12 in the latest Ken Palm ranking. So entering today's action, they are Houston, Iowa State, Kansas, and Arizona. We'll leave Kansas in the mix here because my one got to go is give me one of those 4 teams that you do not believe is built to make a deep run in March.
Houston, KU, Iowa State, Arizona.
That's right. Arizona, despite being 9-5, is 13th overall in the Ken Palm because they played a murderous non-conference schedule. They just won back-to-back road games in the Big 12, which are like consecutive road games, not like won a road game, then they played a home game or whatever. No, they had 2 consecutive home games, and they won them both, which is a really hard thing to do in this league.
Mm-hmm. Oh, God. I am going to pick... Oh, I know they were your pick to win it all. I think I'm going to go with Houston. I think Houston's got a lot of dudes who are B pluses. A lot of guys who are B plus players.
I'll take B pluses with an A plus coach.
Yeah, generally, I would, but I don't know that I'm going to take Houston. Before I overthink it, I'm going to take Houston out.
See, my thought is it's Arizona because I just don't trust that program to make a deep March run. Like, I don't think it's not been in their DNA. Maybe the Big 12 will test them more appropriately and they'll be a little more ready for March than they were coming out of the Pac-12, which had a spotty track record in the dance.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to factor the coach into, I guess I was just thinking roster, but if we're the coaching is obviously a large part of it. Lloyd is the one I trust the least.
Yeah, that's kind of where I land too. Yeah.
All right, I've got a reverse one got to go. It's a you get one. Fox, CBS, ESPN. Who, or I guess, and throw in NBC if you want a fourth. Whose college basketball presentation do you like the best on TV?
Well, when CBS has a game, it feels like an event because it's on the weekend, and the CBS game with the March Madness theme, it just feels like an event when those games are on. When those games are on big CBS. So I will lean in that direction for that reason. I'll say this too. The games that have landed on CBS Sports Network rather than landing on ESPN Plus, that's been a much better broadcast than the ESPN Plus broadcast. So that was a good decision by the Big 12 to get more of their games on CBS Sports Network.
Yeah, my apologies if you were working the broadcast of Oklahoma State, K-State last night. Cover your ears if you were. That stunk. What the heck were they doing?
Bad broadcast team.
I don't like their product. Okay, ESPN's coverage of college basketball gets worse and worse. Although, did you see the big news of the day? The ESPN. Awesome, baby. I love it. That's great news. Otherwise, ESPN's product gets worse and worse. And I don't watch enough of the Peacock games. There's too many Big 12 games elsewhere for me to watch a Peacock game, generally.
No,
unless I gambled a lot of money on it or something. But yeah, give me CBS.
Yeah, like I said, those games, no matter who's playing, like on a Saturday afternoon, if it's on CBS, it's an event. Like it's feels like a big game, even bigger than it is sometimes. You know what game's on CBS coming up in a couple of weeks? Sunflower Showdown.
That's right.
That's a CBS game on Saturday.
Ooh, I hope who are we going to get for that game? Who are we getting? Ness.
It'd be great to get Brad Nessler.
I love Brad Nessler.
Mr. Nessler!
I'd put Nessler up there. Although, I mean, if they're going to put, like, Iron Eagle on the game, I wouldn't complain either.
We're going to get, like, Spiro Ditas and, I don't know, Jim Jackson?
That'd be all right. I can live with that. As long as it's not Carter Blackburn. I'm not a fan. It's irrational, but I'm not a fan.
My only issue with Spiro Ditas is that every basket feels like it swings the entire basketball season. Like, he is infuriating to listen to call, like, a game where you have an emotional investment.
That's fair. Totally fair.
Like, I think technically sound, but if you're invested in the game, the swings and the roundabouts, he's on tilt all the time. We'll take a quick timeout. When we come back, there are 3 AFC teams and AFC West teams in the 7-team AFC bracket. We know the Chiefs have taken up permanent residence, it feels like, in the postseason. But the Chargers and the Broncos, are these organizations on the way up, or did they bump their heads on their ceilings this year? We'll talk about it next on 580 Sports Talk. 3:43 on 580 Sports Talk. Coming up later on in the show, we'll talk more K-State hoops, why this year has failed. I mean, 14 games in, the season's a failure. We'll talk about how we got there so quickly. We also talk about it with Tim Fitzgerald. Go Powercat.com, our Wildcat Wrap-Up. We'll get Fitz's thoughts on that, plus football transfer portal stuff as well with the great Tim Fitzgerald. Something we talked about yesterday, sort of nodded at it while we were discussing the wild card weekend matchups for the coming NFL first round. The Chargers and the Broncos both making the playoffs this year, I think largely unexpected. Certainly the case for the Broncos. There are a lot of people, and I myself included, thought that they had a chance to be one of the worst, if not the worst team in the NFL. And they greatly outperformed expectations. They made the playoffs for the first time in 9 years. Jim Harbaugh got the Chargers into the postseason. That one was maybe a little easier to see coming because A, Harbaugh's track record is so impressive, and B, they have a guy at quarterback in Justin Herbert, a guy you can win games with. But as I contemplate where the Chargers and the Broncos are at, because this is like there's something new and fresh about their successes, right? For the Chargers, it's the new head coach. For the Broncos, it's the new quarterback, Bo Nix. Is this as good as it's going to get for them? Is this the start of an upward trajectory for these organizations where we can start to see them back in that 12-13 win mix you're going to need to be in to try and win this division, take it off the Chiefs' hands for the first time in 8 years? Or is this sort of just as good as it's going to get? Like, this is the best case scenario for these teams, at least in this imperial era of Chiefs dominance. I think it is for one of the teams, and it is not for the other one of the teams.
Okay, so I'm going to take a guess that you say it's not for the Chargers and it is for the Broncos.
That is correct.
Okay, because I had the same thought. I think it is possible both can still get better from here. But if you said it's only going to happen for one, who is it? I would take the Chargers, and I wouldn't think twice about it. For Denver, Bo Nix has to get better in the sense that he's got to be a different quarterback. Right now, as he is, it's working fine. It is working out just fine.
He is a limited quarterback, and there have been teams with limited quarterbacks who made it work because other parts of their teams worked exceptionally well for a season.
Like the last year of Peyton Manning's career?
Yes, like there's an example there in Denver, but like a more contemporary example would be Daniel Jones.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Now, I think Bo Nix is a better quarterback than Daniel Jones.
I do too.
But Daniel Jones and the Giants went to the playoffs 2 years ago because Saquon Barkley was awesome, and that defense was pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, you can make it work because what your limited quarterback has to do is take care of the ball. And Bo Nix, quiet as kept, wasn't great at doing that. He threw 12 interceptions this year, but he got better at it.
Agreed.
As the season went along. And in games where he did take care of the ball, that's where the Broncos won.
He's going to have to push the ball a lot more if they are going to be better than they are. And look, right now it's playoff team. And I know it took until the last week of the season to guarantee it, but like, playoff team every year or 2 out of 3 years, whatever, that's a pretty good place to be.
Yeah, if that's your ceiling, that's not a bad ceiling.
But I have some doubts that he is going to be a much different quarterback over the long. And if he proves me wrong, good for him. I have some doubts about that. Now, the Chargers, Justin Herbert is a better quarterback than that. And I think Justin Herbert...
That is an unlimited quarterback.
Herbert is so fascinating because you like
not Mr. Unlimited, but an unlimited.
Yeah,
yes.
They had Mr. Unlimited, they'd have some problems. Like, you look at the stats and, well, this doesn't blow me away. And like, they've never really won anything. They got the top wild card this year. That's something. Like, they've never really blown me away. But like, he is the ultimate you've got to watch the games quarterback, because you watch him for a full 60 minutes. Like, he really can make every throw. I think he throws the best looking ball in the NFL. I don't think anyone throws a prettier pass than Justin Herbert, which doesn't like actually mean anything. It's just an aesthetic thing.
Sure.
I think he's very good. I think Jim Harbaugh is the third best coach they've ever had in the history of that franchise, behind Sid Gilman and Don Coryell, who, if you wanted to talk about the best innovators in the sports history, both probably in the top 10.
Yes.
Like geniuses of early football.
Yes. And they've not, like, you're skipping like 3 generations of Chargers football to get to Jim Harbaugh.
Like, late stage Marty Schottenheimer. Like, what did you think of head coach Norv Turner? Like, I'm putting Harbaugh above them. I'm just doing that. Thoughts on June Jones? Like, that's what we're talking about here. Harbaugh's a great coach, and they had this success, Dan, with, I think, a worse roster overall than Denver has. Because Denver's defense is really good. The Chargers have some good defensive players. Thankfully for them, Derwin James has mostly been healthy. Mack and Bosa have both been good. Mack and Bosa are also on the back nine of their careers.
Yeah.
I think Denver's defense is on the upward trend. I think the best players for Chargers defense mostly are on a downward trend in their career. And they've made it work. And they have one good pass catcher. One. Like, Quentin Johnston was better this year than his rookie year, sure. But, like, I still think that's a role player. They've got one reliable go-to pass catcher. That's it.
You could probably say that about the Broncos, too. You say Cortland Sutton's their one guy who's a downfield threat in
Vele kind of
their offense. Yeah, they're skill guys. Like, the Chargers don't have great skill guys. They still got better skill guys than the Broncos. Like, if you offered me, like, take quarterback out of the equation.
I guess I'm not giving the Chargers running backs enough
backs,
credit.
Receivers, tight ends. I'm taking, like the... McLaughlin, or is it McLaughlin or McMillan? I never get it straight. The running back for the Broncos.
McLaughlin.
It is McLaughlin's the running back.
McMillan is the defensive
McMillan's
player.
the slot guy who picked Mahomes at one time. I don't think McLaughlin's very good, and he's the guy getting all their carries. Like, I don't know why they don't trust Audric Estime more. I think he is their best guy. Javonte Williams just never came back from the ACL. It happens.
Sucks.
I really liked him.
I did too.
And I thought he was going to be a really good player, but he's never come back from the ACL. The skill guys, I think, for the Chargers, though, are better, is my point there. The defense thing is interesting because we looked at the Broncos defense coming into the season, and like, their spine was really questionable to me. Like, linebacker and safety.
Yep.
Like, what do you have there? But what they ended up having, Patrick Surtain might win Defensive Player of the Year.
Yep.
Zach Allen was really good. Like,
awesome.
Borderline All-Pro.
Yep.
John Franklin Myers was a great addition for them. They got him for
that was a great ad.
They got him for a song, and he's been great. Nick Benito and Jonathan Cooper are as good an edge duo as there is in the league somehow.
Yep.
Like, they ended up with a lot more dudes on that defense than we thought.
Riley Moss had a really good, didn't end the year well coming back from injury going into the playoffs, but he had a really good year at CB2 as a young guy too. Then that's taken a lot of pressure off the rest of that defense. So no, Vance Joseph knows what he's doing defensively. Head coach, no, very bad. As a defensive coordinator, though, that dude knows what he's doing.
He's going to get some interviews. He's been requested. I think the Jets requested a Vance Joseph interview, but
of course they did.
Look, man, he got 1 year. There was a reason he only got 1 year in Denver.
Right.
There was a reason that ended after.
Well, he got more than 1 year, didn't he?
No, he got the one, and then they hired Fangio.
Wow, he really only got 1 year? Dang, I thought he got 2.
Did he? No.
He did. He got 17 and 18.
Did he get 2? Okay.
He went 11 and 21 and got fired.
Okay. Well, there's a reason it was only 2 years. That's my bad. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, your point is well, Matt. But I just think the ceiling is higher. I think the Chargers have a much higher ceiling than the Broncos do. And if you were going to, and I know, well, it's the Chargers. Yeah. Harbaugh's different, man. Harbaugh is a much more serious coach than anyone they've had for years.
Like, Vance argues in the YouTube live chat that Justin Herbert, he feels is on the same level as an Alex Smith, not good enough to take the team to the next level. I will say this as a rejoinder to that is that we've never seen Herbert with a head coach this good. And I think that getting to work with Harbaugh, and if they do improve the skill position player situation around him, I think you will see Herbert hit another level as a player. I think because physically, like, you compare the arm talent, it's not even close. Alex Smith isn't on the same planet as Justin Herbert when it comes to arm talent.
If you gave me the option of a team built with Alex Smith and a B defense or Justin Herbert with a D- defense, I would take Herbert without even thinking.
Yeah,
I would. I mean it, like, and I sound like such a snarky doofus saying this, but I pay for the NFL, like, coaches film product. Like, if you watch Justin Herbert, like, every single snap, he does stuff that Josh Allen does, that not like always Mahomes does, but like, you see Mahomesian stuff. You see all the good things about CJ Stroud people talked about last year. Like, Herbert does that. His coaches have sucked. His teammates have sucked. And I'm not trying to say he's like the best quarterback in the league. I think he's no better than like 5th or 6th. But he's got more juice to him than I think people give him credit for, because he was coached by Brandon Staley and Anthony Lynn.
Yeah,
Dudes who are not in high-profile roles anymore.
Or being considered for them either.
Right.
We'll take a quick timeout, come back, wrap up this first hour of 580 Sports Talk. No more unbeatens in college basketball. Tennessee got rocked by Florida last night.
Biggest loss ever by an AP number 1 team.
Who do you think is the best team of college basketball?
Auburn.
I think it's Duke.
I can see the argument. They're number 1 in KenPom.
Yes, they are. And both Duke and Auburn are putting up net ratings in KenPom that are among the very best, ever to start a season.
I think head-to-head, if that was your national championship game, I don't know what the spread would be. I would take Auburn. And honestly, biggest reason why, even beyond the players, I think Bruce Pearl is smarmy, but I think Bruce Pearl would put a clown suit on John Shire.
Yes, he would coach rings around Shire. No question about that. College basketball team that is very defeated, Kansas State. We're going to talk more about them to lead off the 4 o'clock hour, and we'll have Tim Fitzgerald join us at the bottom of the hour. Coming up on 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Hour number 2 of 580 Sports Talk on a Wednesday afternoon in the capital city of Kansas. High up on Huntoon Hill, it's the sports voice of Kansas. 580 WIBW FM 104.9, 580 WIBW.com, and on video in living color on our YouTube stream at our channel 580 Sports Talk and on Facebook at WIBW News. My name is Dan Lucero. Brendan Dorzinski is in with us for just a little longer. Spencer Dupuis is going to join us at some point today as well. We've got 2 more hours of sports talk coming your way on this Wednesday. So glad you're with us. Jump into the text line, 785-272-9429. Send us a text. Let us know what you're thinking about related to what we're talking about, 785-272-9429. If you are watching the live YouTube stream on the YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube, jump in the live chat. Great to see the regulars gathering around. Vance and the Marks and Clayton and Barbara and others dialing in on the YouTube live chat today. Appreciate having you along with us. If you're watching on YouTube in your web browser or on your mobile device, you too can join the live chat, interact with us and with your fellow listeners. 2 more hours on the show today. Later on, we'll get to some Royals baseball. We'll talk a little KU hoops as they prepare to play Arizona State tonight. A little late night. Not late night at the Fog, but later night than accustomed to at the Fog with an 8 o'clock tip-off. That's to accommodate our friends in the desert at Arizona State, the opponent tonight.
I'm not friends with Arizona State basketball.
Did I tell you that I saw the Arizona State contingent Big 12 basketball media day? It coincided with my mom came to town. She flew into Kansas City to visit for a few days. And so I went to pick up my mom at the airport the night before Big 12 media days, and the Arizona State basketball contingent, they had 3 players and their media relations guy and Bobby Hurley.
Sure.
Was standing at baggage claim. And I'm waiting on my mom's flight to land, and I'm just sitting in the sitting over my baggage claim. And I said, the Arizona State basketball players, there was no mistaking them. For one, very tall. You can always tell when a basketball team is in your airport. There's never any question like what you're dealing with there. Oh, that must be the basketball team. Like any other sport, you can maybe get it confused. Is that the soccer team? Are those lacrosse guys? Is that the baseball team? Nah, with basketball, men's or women's, what a basketball team looks like. It wasn't the whole team. I was just 3 guys, but
sure.
And then Bobby Hurley, who was one of my first favorite athletes, I guess. I was really a big fan of his at Duke. I love those Duke teams. One of my first favorite sports teams as a child, really, really young. I remember watching them and saw them practice. The Final Four was in Denver in 1990. My parents took me to the practice session. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was all in on, Duke. So Bobby Hurley is one of my first favorite athletes. Just walked by me at the airport. That was kind of cool. So anyway, did
you say, hey, Bobby, why can't you coach?
I did not. I should have said something nicer, but I didn't say anything at all. They are.
Why did your brother get those genes and not you?
How'd your brother end up with the coaching genes? You still beat him in one-on-one, though, right?
I was going to say, Bobby got the playing genes. So
no doubt about that. They are back in the Sunflower State tonight at 8 o'clock tip-off, KU Arizona State, game televised on ESPN2. We'll have some more thoughts on that. We'll also be joined at the bottom of this hour by Tim Fitzgerald to GoPowerCat.com for the Wildcat Wrap-Up. We're going to talk to Fitz about some good news, some good things happening in the transfer portal for K-State football and all of that. But we're also going to talk K-State hoops. And that's not going to be as pleasant. K-State is now 7-7 on the season, 1-2 in the Big 12 after a 79-66 loss to, let's not sugarcoat this, that's a bad Oklahoma State team.
Correct.
We said it yesterday. I didn't see anything last night that made me think, oh, wait, no, actually, those guys are awesome. No, man, Abu Usman playing like prime Moses Malone wasn't in my thought process, but there's a reason he's only averaging 12 points a game. Most teams don't let him do that to them.
So for those of you who are into the advanced metrics, the analytics, and KenPom, the most accessible of them, K-State entered last night 87th in the country. Oklahoma State was 107th. This should tell you all you need to know about how bad really both these programs are. That loss by K-State, dropped the Cats 7 spots. Oklahoma State winning only brought them up 4. No one was all that impressed by that team last night. And the fact that it hurt K-State more than it helped Oklahoma State should tell you about the quality of opponent the Cats played.
Yeah, not a quality opponent. And if you get just watching them play, you could see like that was a team that was really disjointed on offense. They just happened to make a lot of shots and force a lot of turnovers, 19 of them, in fact, because K-State was so helter-skelter last night. They're a mess. The opportunity to make the NCAA tournament now minuscule. Like the percentage you would have to squint to see. We said at the start of Big 12 play, they're going to have to win 12 or 13 games. Last night was one of those they were going to have to put in that win column because the more you watch them, the harder it gets to see them being able to compete with. They've got Houston at Bramlage Coliseum on Saturday. What the hell is that going to look like? How many points is K-State going to score against Houston? If that's how they play and that's how careless they are with the ball against Oklahoma State, what are they going to do? What is Houston going to do to them? I guess is the more accurate question. So it's grim. And what's the old saying about failure? Like 1,000 reasons, but no excuses. And so we're not going to offer excuses. But the other old saying is that failure has many fathers. So there's a lot of places that you can look and say, this is why this has gone the way that it's gone for Kansas State. And I think the thing you start with is what we started with at the top of the show to say, like, the players aren't good enough. The players don't mesh and aren't good enough to just out-talent you on a night-in, night-out basis. And it looks like what they're trying to do because they don't, I hate saying this because this sounds really meat-headed, but they don't play real good team basketball. Complementary basketball, I guess, is the best way that I'll put it, where one guy's skill set complements the next guy's, which complements the next guy's. They just don't have that. They have some guys with individual skill sets, but like Brendan Housen's a dead-eye shooter. One, he's in a slump. Two, they only got him 2 3-point looks yesterday. Yep. Doug McDaniel has some creating ability, but isn't able to get to it consistently. Coleman Hawkins is not a scorer. The team needs him to be a first-choice scorer, and he's not that. Like, the pieces don't fit, and the effort has been inconsistent. And I said this late in the opening segment, but there are 2 guys right now when I watch K-State that I feel like I know what I'm going to get out of them effort-wise every night. And it's David Gasson, and it's Buddy Rich lately, Caleb Rich off the bench.
Yeah, he's been playing his heart out.
Yes, I like how hard he's playing.
I think those 2 guys, and I'll let you finish your point, but if I was going to describe the way they were playing recently, I would say both are giving you quality minutes more often than anyone else is giving you.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And I don't think that it is a coincidence that those are the 2 guys in the K-State rotation that have played more than 1 year at Kansas State. The new guys have come into the program and just
no love for Taj Manning.
Well, he's not in the rotation.
Yeah,
like that's why I was careful to specify. Like David Castillo's never worn another uniform. Taj Manning's never worn another uniform. Moby Kegaruka's a JUCO guy, but like though you've got Taj doesn't get off the oak. Castillo's a freshman, and Moby barely plays. So these 2 guys, Gasson and Buddy Rich, those to me are the only guys that are giving you consistency of effort. And it strikes me that the other players on this roster have come in and just don't seem as invested in the success of Kansas State basketball. The program. They're not as bought into the idea of making Kansas State basketball successful. These guys, Coleman Hawkins and Doug McDaniel, those are your 2 main guys. Like when we're criticizing Kansas State, you have to start at the top of the roster because those were the 2 guys that you brought in and said, this is who we're going to build around. Coleman Hawkins and Doug McDaniel. And those 2 guys right now are going to leave Kansas State basketball in worse shape than it was when they found it. Campfire rule, right? Leave it in better shape than it was when you got there. They're not going to do that. Coleman Hawkins is going to be out of eligibility. And if I had to guess right now, if Doug McDaniel's going to spend his final year of eligibility in a K-State uniform, I would guess that would not happen. And I would guess that neither party in this case, Kansas State basketball or Doug McDaniel, cares to extend the relationship beyond just this year.
I would be surprised if he was a multi-year guy. I would be very surprised by that. I think that you've got players on this team who you can say this is a good player. Like, I think Brendan Housen is a good basketball player.
He's a good shooter.
But I don't think...
Good offensive player.
Yeah, I don't think no one is a good fit right now, to be completely honest with you. Like, there should be a useful way to use that guy. Only getting him 2 3-point looks is ridiculous. I mean, that's atrocious. And that's part of that scheme, but part of that is also, like, your teammates got to do something for you. I have, like I said earlier, no complaints about David Gasson, no complaints about Buddy Rich. Like, those guys are giving you heart. Those guys are giving you quality minutes. This is a badly built roster. It's a poorly built roster. Because again, I bought into the hype too, and I did. Hand up, admit that.
I liked the mix. I liked the names. You put the names next to each other and their recruiting pedigrees and some of the things they've done at their other schools, and you thought, hey, this can work.
And that's the thing about the portal, because you're getting guys you know. You can go recruit plenty of guys. There are not many recruits who you go, oh, shoot, like we added that dude. Like, how many per year are you getting? Because even, Duke got the number 1 and number 3 players in the class. How many college basketball fans, outside of guys who are addicted to 24/7 sports, how many could name that other Duke recruit who's not Cooper Flagg?
I couldn't until the season started, and I cover the sport.
Yep, and I knew... they got the center who I think he was an NBA Africa Academy kid, if I'm not mistaken.
Malawak, yeah.
Malawak, yeah.
Or maybe it's Malak. I'm not
I think they were pronouncing it Malawak on TV.
Okay, Malawak.
And I knew he was a big deal.
I remember him from the Olympics because he played for South Sudan.
That's true, yeah.
But Concanupal?
No one knew that was from Waukesha or wherever he's from. But transfers, I remember I saw Doug McDaniel play.
Yeah.
I know Coleman Hawkins. I've seen Illinois play. They've been a top 25 team.
Watched
3
them
years
on
running.
TV, yeah.
You have these names, so when they come in, there's more hype for it, right? Like, oh shoot, we just got a dude who's a 2-year starter, all Big Ten honorable mention, Coleman Hawkins. All right, that's a big deal. That's a big get. So then you buy in, they got names, they got stars, they got studs, but you still need fit. You still need the right pieces to come together and to click. And almost every team, I would assume, has run into something. I'll bring up the KU example. KU has run into this. Not every transfer has worked out.
Yeah.
Dead-eye shooter, 23-year-old Nick Timberlake. Yikes. Yeah. Disaster. Not good. They've had Joe Yesufu, my guy, Joe Yesufu. Not going to work out. Did not happen there. It does not always work out. That's the gamble you take. But when you 3 years in a row have built a roster built on transfers, that is a bigger risk because you don't have that continuity. That's why I like the fact that Housen's got multiple years. The Joneses, at least one of them, has multiple years left. Doug McDaniel, multiple years. Again, I don't expect him to use another one at K-State, but that's why I like that part of it.
Onyenso and Fall, the 2 big men, both have multiple years of eligibility.
But when you're building on, you've used the phrase today, mercenary guys, well, you run into the fact that when you get a gun for hire, there's no passion behind it because Coleman Hawkins is not living for K-State, and that's not necessarily a Coleman Hawkins problem, but it's the risk you run.
You drew the parallel between him and Keontae Johnson, where Keontae Johnson felt like he embraced what it meant to be a Kansas State Wildcat, and I don't think Coleman Hawkins has embraced that. What from the standpoint of bleeding purple, you pricked Keontae Johnson, he would bleed purple.
Yeah.
I don't believe that.
Dude loved K-State.
He did. And again, there's a different background there. The gratitude for having that opportunity to just play the game again and to get to do it at Kansas State. He was grateful to Kansas State for the opportunity. I think Coleman Hawkins is grateful to some benefactors for that NIL deal. I think he's grateful to some boosters. Is he grateful to K-State? Does he bleed K-State? I don't see it. I don't see that from him. And you need that buy-in, again, from your best guys. I'm not going to sit here and say Brendan Housen being in a shooting slump and not being a great defender is why K-State's bad. Or the CJ and Max Jones are why K-State is bad. Or David Gasson not being able to guard a true 5-man last night is the reason that K-State is bad. Your best guys have to be your best guys every night. They have to be your alpha dogs. They have to carry you. You know what it looks like. Now you know what it looks like when it doesn't happen.
Yep.
And we have to talk about Jerome Tang's role in this because I have never thought that he was a X's and O's wizard, right? Like, I think very highly of Bill Self as an X's and O's coach. There are a lot of coaches that you look at and say, that guy's really good with the X's and O's. That guy's a wizard with the clipboard. I never thought Jerome Tang was that kind of guy. You don't need to be that kind of guy to succeed. You can be like the program CEO, so to speak. You recruit the players, you institute the
Cal won a national title like that. He played for 2. And nobody is confusing Cal with a whiteboard genius.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you don't need to be that guy to be a great coach. I do think that sometimes Jerome Tang's feel for games lacks. I think he waits too long to call the timeout that could blunt the momentum of another team, hoards his timeouts a little bit. I thought last night, you've got to go to a big man. If another team's center is kicking your behind the way that Usman was last night, you got to try Yenso earlier than the start of the second half because the game's gone at that point. Like, when things snowball sometimes on K-State like they did last night, I think Jerome Tang is a little late at times to call timeouts. But the bigger problem for Jerome Tang's Kansas State Wildcats right now is we are in year 3. And I don't have any idea what the identity of Kansas State basketball is under Jerome Tang. Like, what kind of team are they? How do they want to play? How would you answer that question on the other side of the dial? How would you answer the question? What is Kansas State basketball built to be? Because when you talk about Kansas basketball, yes, they recruit at a high level. They win at a high level. But with KU, you have a vision in your head of how they play and the way that they are coached and what their coach wants them to be. You have that in your head. You know that about TJ Otzelberger's teams at Iowa State. You know the identity of Scott Drew's teams at Baylor. That's been a shifting identity, much like at KU. Some of the philosophies have shifted over time, the way that the sport shifts. The great coaches, the Drews and the Selfs and the Mike Krzyzewskis, they will shift their identities based on the talent they're getting and the way that the game is going. That's why those guys are Hall of Famers. But you know what those programs are. You know their identities. You know what their strengths are going to be. You know how they're going to play. I don't know that about Kansas State basketball. I do not know what a Jerome Tang basketball team is supposed to be good at, what they are supposed to hang their hat on. Is it defense? Is it transition? Is it sharing the basketball? Is it what is it? What is the identity of Kansas State basketball? And it's really hard to have an identity when your roster is completely different from year 1 to year 2 and year 3. So this is not all, I would say, Jerome Tang's, I'm using air quotes here, fault. But for the long-term sake of Jerome Tang's time as the head coach of the Kansas State Wildcats, he's got to figure out what the identity of the program needs to be, because it can't just be dudes, right? That doesn't work.
I think that this program needs a strong shift in messaging. In 9 days, do you know what it will be the 2-year anniversary of?
In 9 days?
9 days, January 17th.
Is that when they beat KU at Bramlage?
First win at Bramlage Coliseum. Do you know what Jerome Tang did at the end of that game?
I remember it well because I was there.
Climbed up on the scores table.
I'll never forget what he said. He said, I got you your 1 court storm. From here on out, expect to win.
One, since that point, K-State is barely over 500 for various reasons. Do you know what he said yesterday during his press conference about winning in the Big 12? Right. I have the quote. Kellis Robinette of the Wichita Eagle transcribed it on Twitter. He said he remains confident in this team after a 1-2 start. Quote, it's 3 games. I don't know why hopes would be down or anything, and both the losses were on the road. The goal is to win games at home and try to steal some on the road. That's how you do it. One, Jerome, Oklahoma State and TCU are bad. Those aren't tournament teams.
Those aren't stealing games. Those are road games that a tournament team should win.
Secondly, look, yes, that's true. That's what you and I say, Dan, or Spencer says, or the Norlanders and the CJ Moores. That's what they say. That should not be what a coach that should be on the bubble is saying. You should be saying, we expect to win every game. This is not good enough. I like Jerome Tang a lot, and I understand why guys want to play for him. You got your ass kicked by a team outside the top 100 in the country. This is not time for, hey, don't get too down. No, this is a light a fire under someone's ass kind of game. Mm-hmm. And if you're not going to do that, then something needs to happen that makes you feel like you need to do that. And I'm not sure why last night was not that moment, because that was embarrassing.
The old saw about there being two kinds of coaches. There's the pat on the back coach, there's kick in the butt coach. Mm-hmm. And Jerome Tang's a pat on the back coach. And there have been lots of pat on the back coaches who have been extremely successful. But when a pat on the back coach meets a team that needs a kick in the butt,
you got to be able to do both.
You see it. Like, you see the results there. Mm-hmm. And I just think that this is a program that does not know what it wants to be. They hit lightning in a bottle 2 years ago. They were able to bring in that transfer group, and it was beautiful alchemy. It all worked. It worked in a beautiful way because you had two of those guys that were, well, one of them not a transfer that year, Noel, but you had two guys who were All-Americans. Two All-Americans. Not a lot of teams in the country end up with two All-Americans at the end of the year. And K-State did. They tried to recreate that this year. And I do think they had a little bit of an eye on the long term because they did bring in guys with more than 1 year of eligibility.
And credit where it's due. That was smart.
Yes, it was. And it means that you have, hopefully, an opportunity to keep guys like Ugo and Yenso and Brendan Housen and whichever the Joneses it is that has the extra year of eligibility.
I swear it's at least one of them.
And keep those guys in your program and get them to be invested in the success, short and long term, of Kansas State basketball and what that means, what it means to Kansas State University. But the short-term outlook is really, really ugly. And I think that this is a look in the mirror type of season, whether Jerome Tang wants to admit it or not, to look in the mirror and say, what do I want this program to be? And how many chances am I going to get to make this program be what I want it to be? We're going to take a timeout. Brendan Dworzinski's off to Lee Arena for Washburn basketball. Spencer Dupuis going to hop in the box. We got What Is Wrong With You coming up next. Then Tim Fitzgerald to GoPowerCat.com on 580 Sports Talk. Time for a quick round of What Is Wrong With You on 580 Sports Talk. Our current weekly champion, the name that really rolls off the tongue. I don't know a drunk driver when I see one or when I am one. The gentleman on Vancouver Island who called in a suspected impaired driver while himself being an impaired driver. Also, the suspected impaired driver was not actually impaired. That's our current weekly champ, Spencer Dupuis. You've got a What Is Wrong With You today. Give it to me.
Yes, we're going to one of our favorite counties in Florida where we will hear from our favorite sheriff in Florida in just a little bit. A Polk County canine helped catch an attempted carjacker who's accused of threatening a Frontier Communications contractor at gunpoint before running into the woods. Deputies of the Polk County Sheriff's Office were sent to the intersection of West 1st Street and Rifle Ridge Road in Juanita around 4:20 p.m. on Thursday to investigate the report of an armed disturbance. According to deputies, a Frontier Communications contractor told them he was near the end of a dead-end street of 3rd Street West when a Hispanic man approached his work vehicle and threatened him with a handgun. Deputies noted that the victim's vehicle doors were locked, so the suspect could not get inside. The victim left the area and called 911. Canine units discovered a man matching the description at 103 Bomber Road. When the deputies approached him, he ran into a wooded area. He didn't get far, though. Canine Ketchum, that's the name of the canine dog, was able to capture the man, who is identified as 30-year-old Erasuro Mascori Jr. Mascoro. The victim positively identified him as the carjacker who threatened him with the handgun. When interviewed by deputies, he claimed he did not remember the incident before he, quote, blacked out. He attempted to use both PCP and meth earlier in the day.
Yeah, that'll do it.
He is a very dangerous individual, stated Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd, our favorite sheriff.
There he is.
Not only does he admit to using drugs, but he has a history of violence and is now known to be armed. I'm proud of my deputies who were able to quickly apprehend the fleeing felon before he seriously hurt anyone. He is a danger to the community, and the hardworking citizens of Polk County needed him behind bars. He's been charged with attempted carjacking, aggravated assault, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, and resisting arrest. His criminal history includes arrest for possession of methamphetamines, battery on a pregnant woman, and child abuse. So
wow.
Bad guy.
Real peach, Mr. Erasuro Mascoro. Yeah, that's meth and PCP. Yeah, that's quite a cocktail. All right, my story is from Florida as well. We meet 61-year-old James Newland of Fort Pierce, Florida, and we also meet his 33-year-old boyfriend, who were going to the bedroom to do what two people who are in love do in the bedroom. The younger man said smacked Newland on the fanny hard enough, according to the police report, to leave a handprint. Newland, the 61-year-old, didn't like that very much. The man apologized, put his clothes back on, returned to the living room of Newland's Fort Pierce home. When Newland subsequently appeared in the living room, he allegedly grabbed a revolver from a side table and pointed the gun at the victim, saying, quote, "You want to try me?" and, quote, "You want to bleep with me?" As the victim departed the residence, Newland fired one shot into his front porch's pavement. During police questioning, Newland reportedly admitted to the shooting, but claimed he would never hurt anybody and was only trying to scare away his boyfriend, whom he accused of striking him with a gas can. Newland smelled of booze and had slurred speech. He gave consent to search his home, where cops found approximately 9 firearms. 2 other guns were removed from Newland's car. He was arrested and charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, a felony, and 2 misdemeanor gun counts. He was released from the county jail on New Year's Eve. Has been ordered to have no contact with the victim. So when you say that you would never hurt anybody and the cops find 11 guns in your apartment, good look. 9 in your apartment, 2 in your car. Yeah, not a great look. Who wins today?
I don't know. I feel like Ty goes sobriety maybe on this point.
Yeah, well, neither of them were sober.
Yeah, but one wasn't, quote, blacked out on PvP and meth.
That's a good point. That's a good point. We'll go to the foreplay gunplay, which is a great name for the story.
That's a good one.
Foreplay gunplay is a really good name for the story. Despite that, I do not think that it beats the gentleman who called in a drunk driver who wasn't actually drunk, and he himself was drunk.
Yeah, that doesn't beat
it. That's a strong one. That one to me is getting funnier as we go along this week.
I mean, it's a strong contender already for could win the week and maybe the month.
Could go wire to wire this week, no question. We know it's surviving to Thursday. on what is wrong with you. We're going to take a timeout. When we come back, Tim Fitzgerald to GoPowerCat.com joins us for the Wildcat Wrap-Up on 580 Sports Talk. Joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline is the great Tim Fitzgerald to GoPowerCat.com. Him and his staff cover the Wildcats like no one else. Become a subscriber, a VIP member today over at 24/7 Sports to get access to all of the great coverage from Fitz and Company. Find him on Twitter as well at Life of Fitz. Tim, the old saying is that there are 1,000 reasons for failure, but no excuses. So let's start at the top of the list, because this season already looks like it belongs in the failure category for Kansas State men's basketball. What's the biggest reason that this 7-7 basketball team just hasn't been able to click? In your opinion, what's the biggest reason it hasn't clicked?
They don't seem to like each other. They don't seem to have any concept of team. And maybe that's what you get when you go in the NIL period and you get a bunch of guys worried about NIL. They're literally just worried about themselves. It's the darndest thing I've ever seen. There's talent on this team. There's enough to win a lot of these games. And here they are. Coleman Hawkins' comments after yesterday's game were stunning. I mean, he's talking about how they just don't seem to have any passion for what they're doing. And it's baffling to me because they had a good win. They had a good effort at TCU, although they blew it. It's like they lost the game, so they just quit and went back to what they were doing. It's insanity.
You start at the top of the roster when you're looking at the players, and Coleman Hawkins is the best guy. Like an objectively good basketball player, got the big NIL package to come from Illinois and finish his college career at Kansas State. He strikes me as a player who does not maybe accept the responsibility of being his team's best guy night in and night out? Is that a fair assessment that maybe he just hasn't gotten to the point where he understands that with that check, with that reputation comes the responsibility of being the man night in and night out and being the reason your team wins games, where he seems more content to be in that facilitator, that second banana role that he thrived in at Illinois, where that's not available for him at Kansas State.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big transition. I mean, that's, in terms that we both understand, that's going from being the sidekick to the guy that's hosting. I mean, it's a whole different duty. And if you're not used to doing the things you got to do in that role, you're going to be awkward with it. And probably just kind of revert to your old ways. Jerome Tang mentioned after that Cincinnati game, they've been insistent with him that he has to be the scorer. He wants to be the passer, creator, the good teammate. But in this team, he's got to be the lead scorer. And we've seen him assert himself a little bit more. And I just wonder also in this NIL period if those comments by the coach doesn't strike the other guys, like, okay, well, you want him to succeed. I really think this is all NIL based. And I think there was a miscalculation by the staff in the type of players and their motivations for coming to Kansas State.
We're talking to Tim Fitzgerald, GoPowerCat.com, joining us here on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. We call it the Wildcat Wrap-Up. We do it every Wednesday at this time on 580 Sports Talk. It does not feel, we were talking about this earlier in the hour, like Kansas State basketball under Jerome Tang really has an identity as far as a style of play, as what you are going to get from Kansas State basketball on a night in, night out basis. And some of that is that it's hard to implement an identity when your roster shifts as often as this K-State roster has shifted. But in your mind, what you're hearing from Jerome Tang and what you hear from people around the program, what is meant to be, anyway, the identity of a Jerome Tang Kansas State team? And why hasn't this team been able to get to that identity?
Yeah, that might be the best question I've ever been asked about this basketball program. I don't have an answer, man. They want to be tough defensively, but we've seen that nature of the defense change, and they just don't seem to have that investment in being tough, at least this group. Offensively, they had such great success with a true point guard, a true creator, a guy that's lightning fast with the ball in his hands. And these last two teams, they've decided to try to convert a more of a shooting guard into a point guard. Just because you're short, you're not a point. It's a learned skill. And I don't know that they really have an idea what they want to be offensively. Last night, they ran into an Oklahoma State team that wants to run. That's his brand of ball. We're going to run. And everyone knows it. I'm not sure sometimes what K-State's trying to do on the offensive end. What exactly is their plan of attack?
This is a question that really kind of stood out to me last night after Abu Usman looked like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for a half in the post against K-State. What has happened to the development of K-State's true bigs? Because I like David Gasson, and I think he's probably been like the most consistent guy effort-wise for this K-State team. But he is not a 5. He is not a center. He's a little too, and this is not his fault, he's light in the seat to deal with like the heavies in the post. And Usman is much more of a heavy. What has happened to the development of guys like Ugo and Yenso? I know he had the eye thing that probably set him back, but him and Baye Fall were kind of brought in to be more of those true 5s. And Jerome Tang didn't go on Yenso until the second half began, and the game was already gone yesterday.
I'm with you. And that's generally the problem. David's best basketball is at the 5, but he comes with glaring weaknesses there. And a lot of it's defensively and having a shot blocker in the middle. But you move him to the 4 and you just see him, the farther he gets from the rim, the less productive he gets. So you're basically saying the guy that has worked the hardest is going to go to the bench because I got to play these true bigs. And that's a conundrum for the coach. You already don't have enough effort. You're going to remove the one guy, essentially punish him for having the effort but not enough skill. I thought we'd see a lot more of these big guys. I thought Coleman Hawkins was going to be more of a 3, to be honest, and it just hasn't worked out that way.
We're joined by Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com. And Tim, shifting to the women's side of things, ranked number 12th in the nation, I believe off to one of their best starts under Coach Mitty that they've ever had. And tonight it's a big test to facing number 22 Utah. What have you liked from this women's team so far this year?
Their depth. They've just got so many more answers. Terrence Hyde's coming on and a couple players from the portal. They just have an ability to do more things than they did last year. And that includes rest Aoka Lee, like not relying on her so much because they don't come apart that way. I mean, against Texas Tech, she played 19 minutes. She didn't play half the game. And she was still productive because they cut down her minutes, and they now don't have a drop-off when she's off the floor. It's really impressive what the roster that Coach Mitty has built. It really is. And I think that makes his team different, not just from last year's K-State women's team, but most of them. And I think that lack of depth has often been the downfall, whether it's in the NCAA tournament or just trying to get there. They run out of weapons and they don't have enough answers. This team does. And
being able to rest Aoka Lee has obviously given them the fact to build depth. I mean, you see Kennedy Taylor coming off the bench so late in the, like, not, 6th or 7th coming off the bench. It seems like that maybe this could be the recipe to get them, into the 2nd, 3rd weekend of the NCAA tournament, is not making the whole season rest on Aoka.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, look back last year, they ran into a Colorado team, and there was a big physical team, and Aoka was worn down, and it didn't work. They kind of ran out of things, and now they can rest her, and they need to rest her because her body continues to give her issues. And but they're better now when she's not on the floor because they got enough people that can balance things out. And I mean, the sophomore has turned into one of the best shooters in the country. And when you got that and a true post, man, you're tough to solve. It's really difficult to figure out how to stop that.
Tim Fitzgerald, GoPowerCat.com, joining us here on the Wildcat Wrap-Up on 580 Sports Talk. Again, you can check out Fitz's work at GoPowerCat.com. Find him on Twitter at Life of Fitz. Let's pivot to football and the transfer portal, Fitz. K-State added a veteran running back, Gabe Ervin from Nebraska, in the transfer portal. What do you make of that addition with Dylan Edwards and Joe Jackson already on board?
Yeah, it's purely depth, purely maybe a third down back. Maybe someone that brings in to protect, someone that might be short yardage, and honestly might, in certain plays, take the fullback role like DJ Giddens did this season at times for Dylan Edwards. I think that's probably what they're looking for because they've got two really good young running backs, but neither one of them are that big, and Dylan Edwards is, honestly, it's an issue. You put him on the field and pass protect, it's going to be a problem. Deuce Vaughn found a way because he's stout to overcome that, but Dylan's a lot smaller in weight, and I think protecting the quarterback was a big reason why, along with probably short yardage.
Who among the current group of transfers that K-State has added to date are you most intrigued by in terms of not even just their short-term impact, potentially their long-term impact as well?
You had to ask me a question right as I forgot his name, the Arizona safety.
Oh, Gunnar Maldonado.
Yeah. Look, K-State's defense is based so much on good safety play. And they didn't have that this year. And I think that was part of the problem. Ironically, they had it when they started putting the young guys in later in the season. So I think bringing in another veteran safety and a proven commodity. I mean, and a locker room guy too. They just love him at Arizona. So I think that was a huge move because so much of this defense is pinned on what those safeties can do.
Wanted to ask also about some recruiting news. Ian Premer, the tight end from Great Bend here in the state of Kansas, not only been offered by K-State football, has also been offered by Jerome Tang in the K-State basketball program. Pretty unique. I haven't seen him play football, but I did see him play basketball at the state basketball tournament last year at 5A in Emporia. Just a sophomore. You could tell he's a special athlete. There's a reason he's going to be one of the top tight ends in the recruiting class. How realistic is the two-sport idea, and how much of that is Kansas State just showing that they're really all in on a kid who is, again, another standout in-state talent?
Yeah. I hadn't thought of that. Kleiman might say, hey, Jerome, you want to, I'll let him play. Of course, look, it's hard to do both because they overlap.
Right.
And most of the guys who have done it, at least at Kansas State, with those two sports, have been football guys first. And they always kind of look like football guys on the basketball court. I find this really interesting because now the nature of how you play tight end, thanks to Travis Kelce, is like an athletic power forward. And that's how you run pass patterns. And so there is a tremendous amount of athletic overlap between those two positions right now, and where the game of basketball is and the game of football.
He's got visits to K-State and KU lined up for the month of January. His recruitment will be interesting to follow, and you can do it along with following all of the rest of K-State athletics news at gopowercat.com. Be a VIP subscriber at 24/7 Sports Today. You will not regret a single penny spent on that investment. Tim Fitzgerald, gopowercat.com, joins us every week for the Wildcat Wrap-Up here on 580 Sports Talk. Fitz, it is always a pleasure, even when the subject matter sometimes is not. Thanks for taking the time. We'll do it again next Wednesday.
I made it through this segment without crying, shouting, laughing hysterically, or just cursing. So I'm proud of myself.
Well, I'm a little disappointed I didn't get you to laugh. I'll have to try better next time.
There you go. You got it. You got it right there.
Thanks, Fitz. We appreciate you. That is Tim Fitzgerald. We'll take a break, come back, and wrap up this 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. If you'd like to hear a winning basketball team in K-State purple, you're in luck. We've got K-State hoops On the women's side, on the air tonight here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW, FM 104.9. Tonight, the Midi Cats are on the road at Utah, so it's a late start, 7:30 pregame coverage, an 8 o'clock tip-off. We'll have all the action for you right here in your home for the Wildcats. Barbara points out in the YouTube live chat, a little disappointed the fans aren't filling up Bramlage for the women. Give it time because, the entertainment dollar these days, it only stretches so far. But I think that the discerning dollar from the K-State fan might be headed towards the women more so than the men moving forward. And we're going to have some tickets to give away, too. We're going to give away their next home game's the 16th, next Thursday. They got Arizona coming to Bramlage. We'll give away some tickets for that one and future home games as well. So we're going to give you a chance to go and check out the Midi Cats in person with some ticket giveaways here on 580 Sports Talk. Coming up in the final hour of the program, I've got an idea for the Royals, and I think it's a realistic idea, not a pie-in-the-sky free agent proposition, but a realistic idea for a player the Royals could look at to improve their offense. I don't think it would cost them much more than it cost them to bring Michael Lorenzen back. So I'll share my idea and why I don't like ESPN's idea for the Royals to improve their offense. Plus, we'll preview KU Hoops tonight. Start the hour, of course, with our 580 Sports Talk headlines. That's coming up on the final hour, 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Third and final hour of this Wednesday edition of 580. Also catch us on Facebook, WIBW News. Dan Lucero and Spencer Dupuis hanging out with you for the final hour of the show. Brendan Dworzinski getting ready to go live from Lee Arena as finally Washburn basketball gets to play a home doubleheader. Haven't played a home since November 30th, but they're back on the home hardwood tonight against Missouri Western in MIAA play. The women get things started at 5:30. The men's game follows at 7:30. Tip-off, or rather, start of the broadcast in just about 10 minutes here over on our sister station, your home of the Ichabods, Country 106.9. That's where Brendan's at, and so it's me and Spencer the rest of the way. We are working today. Our wives are not. Wives.
Whoa.
No, I'm not breaking news. Our significant others.
Yes.
Are
and
not.
YouTube commenter Olivia is actually hanging out in my office today.
Oh, is she?
Yeah.
What, she come by and say hi to me?
She said, and I quote, I'm gonna call her out on this. She said, I walked by his office. He had a baseball bat in his hands, and I didn't want to disturb him.
I did. I got a Louisville Slugger in the office, and sometimes I'll just hold it like Al Capone. just I like the way it feels in my hands, man. What can I tell you?
Yeah, she got bored of being at home, and I was like, hey, you can come with me to work.
Now, so both of our significant others, I got to be careful how I choose my words. Brendan's married. I'm married. You are not.
Yes.
But both of our significant others, employees of USD 501, they also get tomorrow off.
Oh, yeah. She's been frantic all day. She's like, we need to go home and clean off my car. And I'm like, you're not going to have school tomorrow. They haven't even plowed our roads yet. And then at 2:30, they put out, like, the city of Topeka put out a press release saying they're going to try to get to all of them by tomorrow night. I'm like, you're not having school tomorrow.
Yeah, like I knew yesterday when I got stuck trying to get back into my neighborhood, they were not going to have school today.
Yeah.
Like when I finally got free and got back to the house during my lunch hour, I told Abby, I said, you guys are having school tomorrow, no chance. And I kind of wondered because they haven't been able to get the plows out. I know that the folks in the city are doing the best they can to get the residential roads plowed, but you just can't guarantee the safety of people traveling within the neighborhoods, and the roads to the schools are still not in the best of shape. So yeah, USD 501 off again tomorrow. It's the winter break that will not end.
Hey, and if they go back Friday, it's like a late arrival or something. I'm pretty sure Fridays are.
Yeah,
late arrival days.
it is. YouTube viewer and commenter Olivia says that the bat was intimidating in my office. I understand that sometimes I just carry it around the office.
Yeah, that's what I
carry
told
it
her.
on my shoulder like a young Ted Williams.
I said he just walks around with it and just has it. He found them. He had one. You had one in your office, and then we had other ones, right?
Yeah. I've got 3. Like I can take some like hacks, like I'm getting loose, like I'm Gary Sheffield getting ready for an at bat and swing 2 or 3 bats at once. Sometimes it feels good to limber up. My arms are so sore from doing all that snow shoveling that I did the last 2 days. So, like, I'm feeling it. I needed to loosen up the upper body a little bit. So I picked up the bat. I was taking, just a few hacks. Some people have golf clubs in their office. That'd be more appropriate for me because I play a lot more golf than I do baseball anymore.
Yeah.
But every now and again, I like the feel of a good Louisville Slugger in my hands. Like the way it feels.
Yeah, but I brought her to work because she was bored of being in our small 1-bedroom apartment all day.
No,
I don't blame her.
Can understand. You get a little cabin fevery around this time. I certainly believe that is the case. But yeah, no school for 501 tomorrow. Any other closures for tomorrow, you'll find them at our website, 580wibw.com. Still to come this hour on the show, I have an idea for the Royals to improve their offense. And I don't think it would cost John Sherman a whole lot of money to do it. I also saw an idea from ESPN.com that I didn't particularly like, and I'll explain why. Also, KU basketball in action tonight against Arizona State. Give a quick preview of that one as KU tries to avoid losing back-to-back home games to open conference play for the first time, I don't know, since Hector was a pup. Like, that's probably never happened. Let's be completely honest. If it has, it was in the 80s. It was, maybe the Ted Owens era. I don't know. But been a long, long time. I don't want to say Ted Owens did that if he didn't. I just that's as far back as my frame of reference goes with KU basketball before I start getting spotty on years and things like that. So they got Arizona State tonight. The Sun Devils. We will be considering Arizona State, however briefly, coming up on the program. But first, it's our 580 Sports Talk headlines. It's how we open every hour, or 5 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. And we began with how the sports world is being impacted by the wildfires in the greater Los Angeles area that have just been so devastating and have been so hard to get under control because of the wind and the weather conditions in that area. Speaking for myself, my parents went to college in Malibu. Both of my parents went to Pepperdine. And so I see, those images from Pacific Palisades, Pacific Coast Highway, and those are familiar images to me. Like, I've spent a ton of time in that area. My mom grew up in Santa Barbara. They met my parents in college in Malibu. Still know some folks who live out kind of in that general Pacific Palisades area, north and maybe a little west inland of Los Angeles. And the images are just devastating and extremely sad. And of course, our thoughts and prayers are with everybody affected by these wildfires. But certainly, when you have a natural disaster, it does tend to intrude on the sports world. Tonight's NHL game scheduled between the Los Angeles Kings and Calgary Flames has been postponed. The Lakers are scheduled to play a home game in the same arena downtown LA on Thursday night, not known whether that game will be impacted. The NFL is also monitoring the situation's potential impact on Monday night's wildcard playoff game between the Rams and the Minnesota Vikings at SoFi Stadium. Presently, the air quality in Inglewood, California is 281. To give you an idea of what that means, a rating of 150 is considered very unhealthy. And the air quality across most of greater Los Angeles right now is well above that particular standard on the air quality index. So the practice was altered for the Chargers today. Jim Harbaugh had the offense and defense practice separately to limit their time on the field because the Chargers facility is in El Segundo. I left my wallet there once. And that's not a true story. That's the song. The air quality index at the team's facility was between 170 and 200. So not real good to be outside right now. Also, the wide receivers coach for the Chargers, Sanjay Lal, lives in Calabasas, which has been affected, and he and his family were dealing with power outages last night. So it is certainly impacting the preparations, at least, for the Chargers and potentially for the Rams. Although the Rams were able to say that they had a scheduled off day today, so they didn't practice, and that no players or staff as of Wednesday morning had been impacted by those wildfires. The Chargers have announced they will provide $200,000 in targeted funding to the American Red Cross, LA Fire Department Foundation, Team Rubicon, and pet rescue organizations sheltering animals displaced by the fires. Obviously, keep an eye on that and what that could mean for Wild Card Weekend. But obviously, the greater concern is getting those fires in check and making sure that there is no greater toll as far as human life goes. There have been reported 2 deaths near Pasadena as a result of one of these fires. So hopefully, again, those crews can get a handle on those very soon.
So that game's not scheduled till Monday. Correct?
That's right. Yeah, it's not until Monday. So hopefully, again, you get the air quality. I think we've had now SoFi Stadium's like a partial dome. Like there's a roof.
It's a
but
very
it's not a
weird.
dome.
Yeah, it's not. It's not also like not indoor 100%.
There's a roof, but it's like a canopy.
Yeah,
it's not a dome. It's not like a dome like the U.S. Bank Stadium in Minnesota's a dome. So yeah. And there have been in the past sporting events that were changed around because of air quality, because of wildfires. I think it was in Seattle where there was a baseball game that got postponed because the air quality was so poor. Or maybe they just tried to play through it. The air quality.
I think they did. There were a couple games when those Canadian wildfires were coming down.
Yes,
they had to move a couple games.
I think that's what I'm thinking of. So.
This is kind of a little bit off the beaten path, but not really. The Monday night game was added in 2020, correct?
Yeah, when they expanded the playoffs. Yeah,
and they called it what?
Super Wild Card Weekend.
Do you know what they're not calling it anymore?
Super Wild Card Weekend.
Yeah, but they still hope the weekend's games will be super.
I bet they will.
According to a release.
Do you have a headline for us, Spencer?
Yes.
Do you want to do all these NFL coaching rumor mongering headlines in one here?
Oh yeah. I'll just get the Chiefs ones and you can get.
Okay.
Yeah. The Jets and the Raiders have requested interviews with Steve Spagnuolo, and as of this afternoon, the Jets have completed an interview with Matt Nagy. I think this is all to be expected.
Certainly, Steve Spagnuolo has been open that he would be open to the idea of being a head coach again. Didn't work out for him in St. Louis when he was the head coach of the Rams, but to be honest, that was a bad situation. Didn't have a quarterback. It went poorly then. He's a different coach now. He's in his late 60s, but certainly would not be surprised to see him get some serious consideration. Matt Nagy getting that interview with the Jets as well. Jets doing their due diligence on both Chiefs coordinators.
I don't think either get offered the job.
I don't either. I think the Raiders are going to swing bigger because that's who they are. I'm honestly surprised we haven't heard a connection between the Raiders and Dion.
Oh yeah.
I'm really surprised that that's not a name we've heard yet. A name we have heard is Bill Belichick, because Tom Pelissero of NFL Network reported earlier today that NFL teams have interest in speaking with Bill Belichick, who you may recall just agreed to become the new head coach at the University of North Carolina. One team that would naturally, you would assume, have interest in reuniting, or not reuniting with Belichick, but bringing Belichick aboard, would be the Raiders because of their minority owner, Tom Brady, who, of course, famously has a history with Bill Belichick. It would be so funny for so many different reasons if Bill Belichick took an NFL job.
Did you see he is now on Twitter?
I did see that. Good for him. I'm sure he'll join InstaFace and Snapbook next. Looking forward to that. As far as other coaching rumor mongering out there, the Bears have just completed an interview with head coach candidate Mike Vrabel. Also reportedly interested in interviewing Matt Campbell, the head coach at Iowa State, who just signed a long-term contract extension with Iowa State University. So that's just some of the coaching news that is out there.
So I read up on they change the coaching interview rules like all the time.
Yes, they do.
And basically, if your team's season is over, you're allowed to interview if you're granted, or if you're out of a contract. You're allowed to interview whenever. But if your team's in the playoffs, you can virtually interview starting today through Monday afternoon, virtually. And then if you get an in-person interview, it will be in 3 weeks, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. I was confused because they change it so often.
They do. Yeah. And I'm not in the front office of an NFL team, so I've never been like urgently feeling like I needed to keep those rules straight. But certainly, yeah, there's a lot that goes into that. Next headline for me: James Franklin, the head coach at Penn State, was in a press conference ahead of. Now, did you know which bowl it was that Penn State and Notre Dame were playing in for the college football playoff semifinal?
I did not know.
I didn't realize it was the Orange Bowl until yesterday, and that it's the other one, the Peach, or no, the
Cotton Bowl.
Cotton Bowl is the other one. The Cotton Bowl. Yeah, that's the other one. The Texas and Ohio State's the Cotton Bowl. Anyway, Penn State playing Notre Dame in the Orange Bowl, and James Franklin threw a little bit of shade, unintentionally, I'm sure, at Notre Dame when he was talking about the teams representing their schools and our conferences, and then he caught himself and said, "Well, our conference." Anyway. And Franklin would go on to say later in the press conference, quote, "It should be consistent across college football. This is no knock at Marcus Freeman or Notre Dame, but I think everybody should be in a conference. I think everybody should play a conference championship game, or nobody should play a conference championship game. I think everybody should play the same number of conference games," end quote. I agree with James Franklin on this. Let me explain to you why this is never going to happen. Notre Dame and Georgia each got the same amount of money from the college football playoff for appearing in, what game were they in? The Sugar Bowl? They were in the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah.
Notre Dame and Georgia were in the Sugar Bowl. Each team got a $14 million payout. Now, the rules, the college football playoff stipulate that money is meant to be dispersed among the members of your conference. So that $14 million that went to Georgia also went to Alabama and Vanderbilt and Kentucky and Mizzou and Texas A&M and all of those. 14 million, that pie dividing 16 ways, that shrinks dramatically. Notre Dame get to keep $14 million.
That is just crazy.
Notre Dame gets to keep all that money for themselves because they're not in the conference. They're independent. So when they say things like, well, being independent just really works for us, when they say it makes sense for them, what they're saying is it makes dollars for them. Lots and lots of dollars. And I firmly do not believe that Notre Dame will ever join a conference. Unless they are somehow forced to, it will never happen. It is just not enticing for them. It does not make sense for them. They still get favored nation status when it comes to selection for the college football playoff. And with these payouts that are meant to be divvied up by conference, they don't have to share. They don't have to share the pie. So that is just never going to happen. I agree with James Franklin that it would make for a more level playing field. I certainly agree with him on the subject of everybody playing the same number of conference games. But if you're holding your breath waiting for Notre Dame to join a conference, don't do that because you will never breathe again because it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, it's never going to happen.
Next headline, Spencer.
Yes, next headline for me, and this is a great headline to hear. Dick Vitale's vocal cords, there's no more cancer in them, and he is cleared to return courtside for ESPN soon enough. So we will finally hear his great color commentary once again.
I'm looking forward to having Dickie
too.
V back on the broadcast. You know, he certainly may not be the same broadcaster that he was in his youth. None of us are. But it will be great to hear his voice again and his passion for college basketball again. And I'm sure whatever arena he walks into next, he will get a resounding standing ovation. I'm looking forward to that night.
Yeah.
I don't know when it's going to be. Hopefully it's a Duke, North Carolina game.
Oh, yeah.
That would be fitting.
Maybe in Rupp Arena.
It could be. Maybe it's a Kentucky game. I don't know. But, yeah, just it's great to know that, A, Dick Vitale is healthy, that the cancer that attacked his vocal cords is now no longer in evidence. And I can't wait to have him back.
Yeah.
Whatever you think about him as a broadcaster, his style of broadcasting, there's no denying that his passion for college basketball is authentic and that the game's missing a little bit without him behind a microphone. So, yeah, definitely looking forward to hearing from Dickie V again. That was certainly wonderful news. One last headline for me, the big game last night in TGL. It was never close. Bay Area Golf Club dominated New York Golf Club. The Bay 9, New York 2, the final score. I watched some of this. Okay, TGL, by the way, it is the new virtual golf league that basically takes place inside a giant golf simulator with room for 1,500 spectators, fronted by Rory McIlroy and Tiger Woods. So I watched some of it. I was curious about it. I put it on the TV. I had it on the TV for less than a second, and my wife goes, "What are you watching?" And I explained to her what it was that I was watching. And her next comment was, "This is the dumbest thing that has ever been on television." And her next comment was, "I hope this isn't what all sports are going to become in 20 years. That's the most depressing thought ever." My wife should have her own show. Honest to goodness. I gotta get Abby behind a mic and do some like her sports takes. Got to get her takes every now and again on the show at the very least. Anyhow, I watched it as somebody, I would not call myself a golf sicko, but I like golf. I love to play it. I like to watch it. I like to watch on TV. I know who golfers are. Like
Yeah.
I knew who the guys were. I am more than like a casual viewer of golf on television. I don't just watch the majors. Like I'll check out like the players or, you know, the Waste Management or some of the other events. Like I like to watch golf. I don't know that I'm going to be able to sit and watch 2 hours of some guys banging balls into a golf simulator. I don't know that I have that in me. The pace of it was very good. The virtual golf holes, some of them were really creative and kind of fun.
Weren't they made by like people that create golf courses?
Yes, intentionally designed. They had 3 different designers, each designed 10 holes. There were some really fun designs and really, you know, kind of creative. Be hard to recreate them in real life. Like it's a video game, but it was kind of fun. But it had the vibe of like a guy put a golf simulator in his basement and had his buddies over to drink beer and play the golf simulator. Except the guy is Tiger Woods and his buddies are the best golfers in the world. And the problem with that as a televised event, even though it moved fast and even though it had its moments of intrigue, is that golfers by nature are not terribly interesting people.
Yeah.
And so, like, Shane Lowry's kind of fun. Shane Lowry's got a cool personality. He's from Ireland. He's got a sharp sense of humor. He'll poke fun at himself. But, like, Wyndham Clark has as much personality as drywall. And it's just not super interesting to watch him play a giant golf simulator. Now, I want to play the golf simulator. I want to go to SoFi Arena or the SoFi Center, whatever it's called. I want to play. I want to hit balls off of the real grass tee boxes and try and solve some of those holes. But I don't know about watching it as a televised event. I'm not entirely out on it after one viewing, but I'm not all the way in on it either.
I did not watch it, but I saw this take on Twitter this morning from former NFL head coach and offensive coordinator Jay Gruden. Love pro golf, but that thing last night, watching guys hit into a movie screen, ain't gonna fly. Hope others enjoyed it.
Well, yeah.
That's how I feel like that's what I would say too.
It definitely, like, the novelty of it was, I think, enough to get some people to tune in for night number one. But, like, so the whole thing about sports, right, is that it needs to matter who wins, right? Like, an emotion. But I'll turn on, like, when the Lions play the Packers, because it matters who wins. Like, there's context for what it means to win that game. What is the context of this thing? Who should care about the Bay Golf Club?
I don't know, but I just refreshed my Twitter onto the For You side, and I don't know if the world is listening to me.
They are.
But this reporter posted videos from it yesterday.
Uh-huh.
I did not realize there were, in fact, fans in attendance.
Yes, 1,500 fans, yeah.
And there's just it's like a golf training center. We know it's a golf training center on the campus of, was it Palm Beach State College or something?
Yeah.
And then there's the big screen in the background that everyone's watching.
Yeah. And
you're literally in an arena, type atmosphere, watching the screen.
Yeah. Like, get together, watch you play really good golf and play football. Like, again, maybe that has more or less appeal to you. I can only say that I am not all the way out on it after one viewing. But golfers not being by nature the most interesting people in the world. Like, I'm fascinated to see Tiger do it because I think Tiger had a good time with it. Tiger's body's also beat to hell. There's no guarantee he's going to participate.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like if we're going to see Tiger Woods, in air quotes, play golf again for the long period of time,
it's probably going to be this. Yeah.
It's not going to be on a golf course playing 4 rounds of 18 holes every other week.
Maybe this replaces the senior team. John Daly. John Daly could rip cigs and drink Diet Cokes and do this thing. Maybe that would be, you got to get personalities doing this because otherwise, it's just watching rich golfers play in somebody's basement, and it doesn't matter who wins. Like, you're not emotionally invested in the outcome. Like, where's the hook? I don't know what the hook is yet for this, and I don't know if they'll really find one in the end. But I'll give it another shot. I thought it was interesting enough to warrant taking another look. Speaking of golf simulations, you may never get to play at the SoFi Center. You might not. I might not. I wish I could. It'd be so fun. You see the size of that screen? It was huge, man.
Yeah, it was huge.
It was gigantic. And you get to hit off of the real grass or real sand if you hit a bad shot. Like, and the green, like, they kept reshaping and molding the green every time. It was fascinating. It was really cool technology. You might never have access to that technology, but what if I told you that golf simulator technology was right here in the capital city, and you could avail yourself of it as a Great Life member? Because it's up at Top City Golf in North Topeka and up at Great Life North. The Top Tracer technology allows you to play target games, play games of distance, long drive, closest to the pin, and also play virtual versions of over 20 famous golf courses all over the world. The Bay rental price is surprisingly affordable. And if you're a member, it's even better. And if you're an all-inclusive member like me, it's free. It comes with your membership. So check that out once, the weather gets better. And, of course, if you are a Great Life member, now you want to work out. Snow's making that hard, but you can work out inside at one of the 8 outstanding indoor facilities at Great Life. Visit greatlifetopeka.com for more details. We're going to take a quick break here on 580 Sports Talk. When we come back, ESPN had an idea as a player the Royals could add to improve their lineup. I don't like their idea. I like mine better. We'll talk about it next on 580 Sports Talk. .534 on 580 Sports Talk. Dan and Spencer with you. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. Shoot us a text, 785-272-9429. You can also jump into the live chat if you're watching on YouTube. 580 Sports Talk is the YouTube channel. Interact with us. Interact with your fellow listeners as well. David Schoenfeld of ESPN.com wrote an article today about free agents who are still available in Major League Baseball using Kylie McDaniel's list of the top 50 free agents, talking about relievers and offensive players, starting pitchers who are still out there and which teams would be possible fits for them. He tried to group the players, and one group would be left fielders who put the ball in play. And that group includes Jurickson Profar and also Alex Verdugo. We've mentioned Profar. And Schoenfeld writes, it would be great to see one of the small market teams like the Reds, A's, or Royals, who are all near the bottom of the majors in left field OPS, to sign him. I still think Profar is going to get multiple years and a decent hunk of change. He got on base at a 380 clip last year and hit 280. Slugged 459. Year before that, though, he was terrible. And not only was he terrible while playing half his games in Colorado. And it's hard to overlook that being part of the recent sample size. Is you've got a player who's been really good while wearing a Padres uniform for some reason and not real good wearing any other uniform. So the projection that Kylie McDaniel made at ESPN.com was that Profar was going to get 3 years, $45 million. If that's out there for Jurickson Profar, I don't think the Royals should be the team to do that. I don't. I don't think he'd handled left field defensively well enough at Kauffman Stadium, and I just don't think that's a good investment for the Royals. The other player that we mentioned was Alex Verdugo. He mentions, David Schoenfeld does in the article, Verdugo might be a guy to take a chance on, primarily because he's still just entering his age 29 season. The Yankees hitting .233, getting on base at a .291 clip, and slugging .356. There are some things to like, however. Good contact ability, good defense, a strong arm in a corner outfield, and he produced at a league average level in both 2022 and 2023. You don't want to pencil in Verdugo as a starter, but as a fourth outfielder or platoon bat against right-handed pitchers on a one-year deal for a few $1 million, he's worth a chance. I don't hate that idea. Not my favorite player, Alex Verdugo. He's kind of a he's a guy that maybe you like if he's on your team, but the 29 other fan bases aren't going to like the guy at all. And he was lousy last year, and he was lousy in a ballpark that should help left-handed hitters and should help them hit for power. And the ballpark didn't help Alex Verdugo at all. So I'm kind of bearish on his prospects. Certainly a decent defender. And maybe if the Royals had a little bit more of a settled outfield situation, had more entrenched starters, I would feel better about Verdugo as an extra guy. But a guy who Schoenfeld lists as a second or third tier free agent outfielder that I think makes a lot of sense for the Royals would be Jesse Winker, who's coming off a season where he started with the Washington Nationals, had a really good start to his year.
Yeah, he did.
With Washington. Was on his way, in fact, to one of the best years of his career. He was traded to the Mets and was fine with the Mets over the final 44 games. His OPS dipped slightly below league average, but taking the body of work as a whole, last year, in 145 games, Jesse Winker batted .253 with a .360 on base, a .405 slug, hit 14 home runs, stole 14 bases, a career-high number. Winker's not a great defender. He'll turn 32 in August. He's never been a big power guy, with the exception of 2021, where he hit 24 homers in his lone all-star season with Cincinnati. And in recent memory, there's a total dud of a season where he played 61 games for Milwaukee and OPS .567. And similar concern to Profar defensively for me when it comes to Winker. But the addition of Kevin Biggio on the minor league deal over the weekend showed me that the Royals are well aware of their offense's glaring weakness. They did not have enough guys with the ability to get on base. And you can be my Peter Brand, and I'll be Billy Bean from Moneyball here, Spencer. What does Jesse Winker do?
Gets on base.
He gets on base. Thank you very much for playing along. I appreciate that. Jesse Winker's career on base percentage is .367. He has a half season, granted, but a season with 89 games played in 2018 with the Reds, where he got on base over 40% of the time. Even in his down year, 2023, he got on base at a .320 clip. That was the worst year of his career. And he still got on base 32% of the time, which is more than Vinny Pasquantino got on base last year. I thought Vinny Pasquantino was going to be a better on-base guy, to be honest. I don't know what happened to the on-base skill for him last year. I hope that bounces back for him in 2024 or 2025, rather. But the Royals need guys who can get on base. And the other thing they need is another left-handed bat. They need another lefty stick in the lineup. I think that Winker makes more sense than Verdugo in a long side platoon role in right field. Again, I worry about the defense. I don't think the Royals are set up to be real good defensively in right field this year. It's why I'm more okay than most are with the idea of Kyle Isbell in center field. Because if you're going to be iffy defensively in the corners, you better have a really good defensive center fielder. And I think Kyle Isbell is outstanding defensively. But I think a platoon of Jesse Winker and Hunter Renfroe could work in right field, and I think it would be fairly cost-effective. Winker last year against right-handed pitching was much better than he was against left-handed pitching. He hit 13 of his 14 home runs against right-handers. had an OPS of 788, got on base 36.6% of the time against left-handers, and he got on base 34% of the time against left-handers too. So he's not a total loss if he's got to face a tough lefty, if there's a pitching change and he's got to stay in the game. This is the player I would target if I were JJ Piccolo. This would be the guy. Of all of those outfielders, like Mark Canha's also got some on-base skill. He's a little bit older. Harrison Bader, to me, is a center fielder that I don't trust his consistency. Randall Grichuk, to me, isn't a fit. Tommy Pham, I would not bring back. For me, Winker's the guy that I would be targeting because I think you could get that done. Maybe a similar deal to the Hunter Renfroe deal from last year. I don't even think you'd have to do $9 million up front either, but I think you could do 1 year plus a mutual option and see if you could bring him aboard, make him the guy that gets 400 at bats and Renfroe gets the other 200 out there in right field. And if MJ Melendez completely craters, then Winker can be your everyday left fielder and you figure out something else to do with Melendez.
Yeah. And maybe even I think Winker is a value option.
Right.
Because, I mean, last year, the Nationals signed him to a minor league contract and selected his contract at the end of spring training. So he's not a guy that's going to gouge you out for a lot of money. He had a good season. He's going to cash in a little bit, but he's not going to be a guy you're going to spend too much money on. And you just a 1 year prove it kind of deal and see what he can do.
Yeah. And I think if you limit his exposure to left-handers, he's going to help you. And again, what this Royals team needs, they have the stars. Like, they don't need necessarily to go get a superstar bat, right? They have a superstar bat. Like that, the piece that everybody wants is a piece as good as Bobby Witt Jr. Royals are set there. They have a Bobby Witt Jr. They have the Bobby Witt Jr. There's only one of him, and thank goodness. They've got that guy. So what you need are guys who can get on base in front of Bobby Witt Jr., or just guys who can sustain a rally, guys who can, if I may bring back the phrase from the title winners in 2015, keep the line moving. They didn't have enough guys keep the line moving last year. Jesse Winker is a keep the line moving kind of offensive player. And I think that's who the Royals should be targeting. I don't think they should give $15 million a year to Profar. I don't think they can or should give $20 million a year or however much Anthony Santander's representation is looking for. But I could stomach something short-term for Jesse Winker and have him and Hunter Renfroe. I think that's a reasonably productive platoon batting sixth in your order in right field this coming year for the Royals. You might need to close your eyes defensively a little bit in the corners this coming year. But that's the guy. I would keep an eye. I would circle Jesse Winker if I were the Royals. We'll take a quick timeout here on 580 Sports Talk. When we come back, KU Hoops tonight against Arizona State. We'll talk about what to look for as the Jayhawks try to avoid an 0-2 home start in Big 12 play. That's coming up. 547 on 580 Sports Talk. Dan and Spencer with you as we wrap up the program today. KU Arizona State tonight at Allen Fieldhouse, 8 o'clock tip-off. Game will be on the Deuce, ESPN2. Arizona State's 10-3, 1-1 in the Big 12. They've got one really intriguing player to me. That's Jaden Quaintance, the freshman out of Raleigh, North Carolina. Top 10 player in his class. He's averaging 9.5 points, 8 boards, conference leading 3 blocks per game. I don't know that he's quite physically strong enough to guard Hunter Dickinson one-on-one. If he would happen to draw that assignment one-on-one, I don't know how well that would go for Jaden Quaintance. But the thing that I'm most fascinated to see from the KU standpoint is how Shaquille Moore looks as a starter, because I would figure it likely that he starts again tonight for the Jayhawks. And he seemed to unlock some things offensively and help some pieces fit together a little better when he was on the floor, brought a good energy, and just adds to the playable depth of this Kansas team right now. I can't imagine they lose back-to-back home games. They were lifeless in that West Virginia game in a way that I have very rarely seen KU lifeless in a home game. And that was the thing that Bill Self brought up after that game. Like, how can you be flat?
I'm glad I was in the air for that game and missed the entirety of that game.
It was so uncharacteristic of everything that you expect from a Kansas team, from a Bill Self team at home. And I have to imagine that they will correct that particular deficiency tonight and get after the Sun Devils. They got more talent. They got more depth. They should win this game. Not sure entirely what the spread is. I'm going to go dig and see what our friends at Prairie Band Sportsbook say about tonight's contest as far as the line for tonight's game. It's a late one. Again, late relative, 8 o'clock. Kansas is like 14-point favorite in this game.
Crazy.
Yeah, that, to me, given how they looked their last time at home, that feels a little steep. But they did just beat UCF by 51 points.
They did, yes.
And I think UCF might even have more talent than Arizona State does. So I think Kansas wins. I think they should be able to handle it pretty keenly. And I think that you should be able to get to bed at a decent time, in fact. I don't think there's going to be a lot of drama in this one. What else on the docket for you tonight, Spencer Dupuis?
What's on the docket for me?
Yeah.
Nothing really.
Nothing.
I'm joining a podcast tonight.
Oh, okay.
From guys I went to college with.
Oh, okay.
Who asked me to join as a sports broadcasting expert.
Oh, you're providing some expert analysis.
Yes.
I always like when people ask me for that.
Yeah.
It feels good.
They're like just
they
random guys that I went to college with. They're like, hey, we got this podcast. You want to like come on and potentially be reoccurring? And I was like, why not?
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
Be a good time.
Yeah.
I'll watch the KU game tonight.
I'll watch it as well.
I will check that out. And there's an intriguing game going on right now. UConn at Villanova. That game's midway through the first half. 1-point game. That game's at Villanova. Texas A&M OU tonight on the SEC Network, matchup of ranked teams. So it's a decent college basketball night. KU women already played today, lost a tough one at home to 11th ranked TCU, 80-73. KU had a really tough, daunting schedule to start their Big 12 schedule. Ended up going 1-3 against 4 of the best teams in the league. Fought tooth and nail with the Frogs for 4 quarters, just didn't have the juice to take a lead and pull it out at the end. K-State women tonight in a ranked matchup, also an 8 o'clock tip. This will be screen 2 for me tonight. 12th ranked Wildcats at 22nd ranked Utah, who's coming off a win at Hilton Coliseum. So Utah doesn't seem particularly cowed by the challenges of playing on the road in the Big 12. They'll play at home against K-State tonight. If you're not able to watch that one on ESPN Plus, you can listen right here on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. Pregame coverage from Salt Lake City starting at 7:30 and the tip-off at 8 p.m. We'll take one final timeout, come back with a final word on 580 Sports Talk next. Wrapping up, walking off this edition of 580 Sports Talk for this Wednesday. We'll start with Spencer Dupuy's final word.
It's crazy how weird 3 months ago, 4 months ago, even throughout the summer, we were hyping up this Kansas State team. Just all these individuals coming in to make a team, and it seems like they've been just that, individuals. It doesn't seem like they're working, they're clicking together. Fitz said it earlier. He said it's just a bunch of guys, basically. And you can't be a team in a power conference that expects to make the tournament and have your head coach say, yeah, we expect to win the games at home. It's the Big 12. It's hard to win on the road. It's hard to win on the road when you go to certain places. I don't know, Allen Fieldhouse, among the list of places, up to Iowa State, up to Ames, right? But not when you play the caliber of teams they played to start the Big 12 conference slate off. And it's kind of embarrassing, honestly, for a team that had so much hype to be where they are right now. I don't know. I really thought Kansas State would be in a wildly different position right now than they are, but see what they can do on Saturday.
I certainly thought they would be as well, Spencer. And when you do have a season that's gone the way that this season has gone, there's no one reason for it. Certainly, I think that it is fair to say that at times, for the better part of the season, that the team has not played like a team. It does not appear to be a group that's all pulling the rope in the same direction. But I think the broader problem that Kansas State basketball has is they don't know what kind of team they want to be. They don't know how they want to play on a given night.
My bad.
That's all good. It happens. They don't know how they want to play on a given night, and they don't know what their identity is as a program right now. And that's what Jerome Tang has to figure out for the long haul. What does he want his basketball team to be? It's a nice thought to accumulate talent, and I think Jerome Tang can accumulate talent. I think he's accumulated talent on this roster, but until you have a vision for how the talent is going to come together and play together and win together, then accumulating talent doesn't mean anything. It takes time sometimes to develop a vision. And Jerome Tang, I think, is going to have to look in the mirror and figure out what his vision is going to be long-term for Kansas State basketball. That'll do it for the show today. We got K-State women's basketball coming up tonight, 7:30 pregame, 8 o'clock tip as they take on Utah. Tomorrow on the show, Rick Peterson joins us. Mitch Holtis, voice of the Chiefs, and CJ Moore, the Athletic, for our first Big 12 basketball breakdown. We hope you will join us from 3 to 6. For Brendan and Spencer, I'm Dan. This was 5 Day Sports Talk. Good night.